There's a specific kind of silence that happens when the best person in the world at something fails in front of everyone watching. Not the silence of an upset, not the stunned hush of a close race. The silence of impossibility, of the world rearranging itself around something nobody planned for. Milan heard that silence on February 13th. And then, 43 days later, a different crowd in a different city heard the opposite of silence, a roar so loud it shook the rafters of Prague's O2 arena. The difference between those two sounds, the stillness of collapse and the thunder of redemption, is what this story is actually about, and the distance between them is exactly 43 days. Let's go back to the beginning. Or rather, the beginning of the end, and then the beginning of something else entirely. Ilia Malinin won 14 competitions in a row before the Milan Cortina Games, the longest streak in men's skating in decades. 14, not 8, not 10, 14 consecutive competitions, including 2 consecutive world championships, where he didn't just win, he won by margins that made the rest of the sport feel like they were competing for a different prize. His personal best score sits at 333.81. His closest rivals were regularly posting scores 50, 60, 70 points below that ceiling. His nickname, the Quad God, wasn't given to him by a publicist. It was earned in 2022 when he became the first human being in history to land a quadruple axel in competition. That's a 4.5 rotation jump launched from a forward edge. Most elite skaters spend their careers mastering 3 rotations. Malinin does 4.5, then lands on one blade, then smiles. He was 20 years old when he did it the first time. So when the 2026 Winter Olympics arrived in Milan, Italy, the question on everyone's lips wasn't whether Malinin would win individual gold. The question was by how many points, and whether he'd attempt the quad axel, and whether the crowd would witness something historic. He answered those questions early. In the team event, he delivered a 200-point free skate, throwing down 5 quadruple jumps to break a tie with Japan and give Team USA gold. He even landed his signature backflip, the first skater to do so at the Olympics in 28 years, since France's Surya Benali and Nagano in 1998. The crowd erupted. Novak Djokovic, watching from the stands, was photographed with his hands on his head. Malinin was here. He was ready. And then came February 13th. He led after the short program by more than 5 points. He merely had to deliver a mediocre performance to add individual goals to his team medal. The music started. The opening quad flip was clean. And then, piece by piece, the program unraveled. He bailed on the axel, doubled a planned quad loop, fell on a quad lutz, and fell again on his final jumping pass. When the program ended, he stood on center ice, shook his head, and puffed out his cheeks as if to stop himself from crying. ESPN. His free skate score of 156.33 placed him 15th in the segment and 8th overall, ending a 2-plus-year unbeaten streak across 14 competitions. Kazakhstan's Mikhail Shidorov, who had never been considered a gold threat, walked away with the title. Malinin walked away with something far harder to carry. "Honestly, it's not a pleasant feeling," he said days later. "Honestly, the most honest way to say it is it's just a lot on you. Just so many eyes, so much attention." But here's the thing about what happened next that the scoreboard doesn't show you. Fans around the world chose Malinin as the winner of the International Olympic Committee's Fair Play Award for the 2026 Winter Olympics. Not for winning, not for the backflip, for how he handled losing, with dignity, with openness, with the kind of grace that most athletes only manage in the abstract. He postponed his press conference. He cried privately. He went back on the ice 8 days later for the exhibition gala, in jeans and a hoodie, and performed to a song called Fear. He mimed scrolling through a phone, flinching at invisible comments, and then did the backflip again, this time as an act of defiance rather than triumph. NBC Sports. And then he went home to Virginia, and he thought. He said he thought about the Olympics 24/7 after coming home, mainly the good points. He turned over what went wrong, not obsessively, but honestly, because the difference between an athlete who never recovers from a collapse and one who comes back better is usually this: the willingness to look directly at the worst version of what happened without flinching and to find the one thing inside it that's actually useful. NBC Sports. This was probably one of the easier world championships I've been to, just because of the amount of pressure I had at the Olympics. Coming here, I felt like there was almost no pressure at all. Almost no pressure at all. Let that land. 6 weeks before Prague, he had just produced one of the most shocking collapses in Olympic figure skating history. The internet had spent a week dissecting his mental state. And somehow, through whatever internal work he did in those 43 days, he arrived at Prague's O2 Arena feeling lighter. The crowd of 13,444 was near capacity. All eyes were on Malinin. The question hanging in the air was brutal in its simplicity. Had Milan broken him, or had Milan built him? Olympics. He opened with a superb quadruple flip worth 15.71 points, followed by a triple axel and a quad Lutz triple toe loop combination worth 21.21 points, the highest scoring element of the night. His score, 111.29 points, a personal best, 9.5 points ahead of the field, U.S. figure skating. When his short program ended, Malinin gave no broad gestures of celebration, no fist pump, no roar, just a quiet, knowing look at the crowd, as if to say, I know what this is worth now, and I'm not going to cheapen it. NBC Sports. 2 days later came the free skate, the moment the whole story had been pointing towards, not just for the audience, for him. Standing in his finishing pose on the ice in Prague after the free skate, Malinin screamed while pumping his fists, a stark contrast to his pose in Milan, where he had finished with his face covered by his hands. Olympics. He won the free skate with 218.11 points and took the overall title with 329.40 points, outpacing the field by nearly 23 points. His third consecutive world championship, back to back to back, U.S. figure skating. I've just completely blocked out all the expectations, all the pressure that people put on me, and I was really here just to skate for myself and enjoy every moment of these world championships. And I think I did exactly that. Olympics. Here's what I keep sitting with. The version of Malinin who collapsed in Milan wasn't a lesser athlete. He was an athlete who had never lost before, not at this level, not with these stakes. He had no vocabulary for failure because failure had no reason to show up. The Olympics gave him that vocabulary in the most public, most brutal way possible. Medals don't really define who you are, he said in the days after Milan. U.S. figure skating. That's not a press release line. That's a 21-year-old arriving at something most people don't figure out until they're 40. The gold he won in Prague isn't less meaningful because he already had 2 world titles. If anything, it's more meaningful because he had to cross through something first. He called Prague a fresh start for the next 4 years. He'll be 25 at the next Winter Olympics in the French Alps in 2030. And now he knows something he didn't know when he stepped on the Milan ice as the unbeatable favorite. He knows what it feels like to fall, and he knows that he can get back up. NBC Sports. If you're someone who's ever been the person expected to win in anything, not just sport, and you know what it costs to carry that expectation, and you know the particular loneliness of failing publicly and having to rebuild not just your performance, but your identity, this one's for you. Hit subscribe. This channel exists for exactly these stories.